What's up, everyone? Welcome to This Day in Philly Sports History for September 19th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Thursday edition of the podcast. Week 3 of the NFL kicks off tonight. We'll have more on the Eagles. But today we got a big show. Lots to get to. Let's start with a few housekeeping items. First of all, if you haven't interacted with the Back to the Future voice and text line yet, today's probably going to be a good day to do it. Lots of things that I'm sure many of you will have strong feelings about. That number is 267-495-8531. Guarantee there'll be something that you have a strong opinion or feeling about, so stay tuned for that. You can always hit me up on social media, Jimbo_Mott on Twitter and TikTok, at Philly Jimbo on Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mott. Lots of good things happening on the horizon. Working on some different projects just between kids' sports and my day job. Things have been hectic, so I feel like that has been my MO probably for about the past year, but I have some ideas. It's just a matter of actually finding the time and carving out some time to work on them. Sounds like a Tuesday motivation positivity thing if you ask me. But anyway, spread the word. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Jimbo_Mott. The Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony is coming up in November. All the details you need on the induction class as well as tickets are down in the description. Be sure to check out my boys at the Clash and Conferences podcast. New football episode dropped today. I'm excited to go check that out and see what they had to say. I know lots to talk about in the NFC East, so that is available wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. And then anxious to see tomorrow when the baseball drops. Big series coming up against the Mets. So anxious to see Lewis and Mike go at it, Phillies Mets. Looks like the Braves are kind of fading away as we go through. So that is available wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. Good guys over there. They're doing some great things. And then check out PhillyGoat.com. Sixers and Flyers seasons are kicking off. You got the Red October push coming. Eagles, Union are in a playoff push. They got you covered. All your needs. It's election season. They got your Philly sports-based election gear and yard signs. So go check out Philly Goat. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. That's PhillyGoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off. All right, first thing I wanted to talk about, and before we get into it, like I said, there's a lot to get to today. I saw, and I love this, that the PIAA approved girls flag football as a sport. I don't know if that's going to kick off for this upcoming season or whether it be next school year, but that's a huge deal for just the game in general, but also for girls. And as a girl dad, like, that is awesome that my daughter will have the opportunity, if she so wants, to play flag football. And it's kind of a nice refresher, too, because if you do have kids, you know how insane the travel sports are and how everybody starts at a younger age. And it's just a lot of pressure on kids that should be going to school, learning to read, having fun. But instead, they're like, these are like intense schedules, and we're not even in travel. We're just playing the rec right now. And I mean, even that is tough. Granted, we have 2, so it makes for longer nights. But man, like, when do these kids have time to do their homework? So having flag football, something that's kind of, so far, I'm sure it'll get to the point with travel. But it's refreshing to see that they're trying to grow the game that way, and it's more opportunities for our daughters, granddaughters, whatever, nieces, to get a chance to play another sport in school. And I would be all for it if Ella decided that's what she wanted to play. But I thought that was a cool thing, and it's semi-Philly related, so I thought it was worth mentioning. All right, let's start with the Phils. And kind of another pitcher's duel. 2-1 walk-off loss. Estevez was not good in the 9th, and it's a shame because they wasted Aaron Nola's great performance. I'm more concerned with the offense, and this is sort of the MO. I mean, at any point, they could turn it back on, but 16 strikeouts last night, 16 strikeouts the night before is just insane. Like, let that number sink in. 16 strikeouts in each of the last 2 games. So 32 strikeouts out of 54 outs they had. I mean, that percentage is ridiculous. But that's been the MO of this team. I'd rather them do that now than in 2 weeks when the games really matter. But like I mentioned, huge series, I should say, against the Mets. Phils are up 7 games with 10 to play. They only need to win 1 game to get into the postseason. The magic number for the division is 2. And now that the Mets have a little bit of a lead on the Braves, 2 wins in this series, and the Phils win the division. They play 4 up in New York. Taijuan Walker makes his not so much anticipated return to the rotation. Has pitched well out of the bullpen, so we'll see. It doesn't matter if the offense strikes out 16 times again. So 4 games against the Mets, though. This is what you play for. It's going to be a playoff-like atmosphere up in New York. I can guarantee it. These games are just as important for the Mets, who are trying to lock down one of the wild card spots. But as going into last night's game, and they didn't check the full standings, they were tied for the second wild card spot. So lots to play for both teams. Like I said, the magic number for the Phils for the division is 4. They need 1 win to get into the playoffs. They're still 3 up on Milwaukee, a game up on the Dodgers, which right now they have the best record in baseball, which might not seem like that big of a deal, but if they would get to the World Series, that would guarantee that they have home field in the World Series. Thank God they went away from the stupid whoever wins the All-Star game thing. Phillies Mets tonight, though, I will be looking forward to that. Like I said, it's always fun when the Mets are good, and so are the Phillies. Hopefully, Phillies have not done so well in first games of series this year, it seems like, or at least recently. So let's just set the tone, get that down to 2, and take some of the pressure off the team. I do have to question last night, and I know I'm sure his rationale, I did not hear any press conferences, but I'm sure the rationale was you wanted to give him a day off in order to prepare for the Mets series, but I was kind of shocked that JT did not play last night. Could have possibly used him, but Phillies Mets tonight, division on the line, playoff spot on the line for both teams. It's going to be a fun weekend series, Phillies Mets. All right, now let's go to the Eagles, and still lots to talk about. Want to kind of a day off because of the Monday Night Football, kind of wrap up the game against the Falcons and start looking ahead to the Saints. First, though, let's recap yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, can the Eagles turn this around still? 67% of you have that new Philly mentality, which we got to use as we're getting into the postseason here, and said, yes, they can turn it around. I like it. Let's start a movement here. Hashtag new Philly. Thanks for reminding me of that and getting back to our basics here on this podcast. There will be another question of the day later in the show. But just some of my takeaways. Can we be done with Big Dom now? Can he just go back to being whatever his title is? And I don't need to see him. I don't need to talk about him. Just do your job and what you're supposed to do, and just go away. Like, I'm over it. Like, this has been a story for far too long now, and I'm over it. Can we just be done with Big Dom, please? Speaking of do your job, I did not notice this, but somebody reported to me that Bill Belichick was on the Eagles sideline the other day. Ironically enough, yesterday, I think it was, or maybe not yesterday, but it was released yesterday. He was on Tom Brady's podcast and was just gushing about how he loves the Eagles organization, causing some people to speculate some things, but relax. He's trying to posture for any job he can get. He did the same thing with Dallas. He's talked about the Giants. He wants to come back to the NFC East. That's obvious. So just relax with the Bill Belichick talk. But that's going to lead me to the first thing possibly that might get some people fired up. And I'm going to go out here and stick up for, and I've heard some people in the media, whether it be on Twitter, the radio stations, say this, and I want to agree with it. I'm going to stick up for Nick Sirianni here. First and foremost, I still, listen, it might not have been what I wanted to do, and it did not work out, but I'm going to stick up for the play call because, again, if Saquon catches that pass, we're not having this conversation. We're not feeling as bad as we are. Sure, the pass rush sucks, and it would have sucked no matter what, but I'm okay with it. And then I'm also okay with him not going for it and kicking the field goal because you got to hope that Kirk Cousins, who can't move, is not going to tear your defense apart, especially the way Kirk Cousins had played that entire game. He wasn't like he was great until that last drive. So I'm going to stick up for Coach on this one. Plus, you guys, I think, and I talk all the time about national media being lazy when it comes to Philly fans and always, oh, well, you threw snowballs at Santa and you did this. And it's a lazy narrative. And I think getting on Nick Sirianni for that loss is just lazy. And Philadelphia, we are better than that. Don't be lazy. Like, did he call the play? No. Kellen Moore calls the plays. Did he decide to kick the field goal? Yes. Percentage-wise, that is what made sense. You got to expect your defense to get a stop against Kirk Cousins, who's hurt. Is he coaching the defense? No. The Vic Fangio guru is coaching the defense. Howie Roseman, boy genius, is the one that gave him the players that can't get a pass rush. So to blame Nick Sirianni, that's the easy way out. I'm disappointed in you, Philly, for blaming Nick Sirianni for that loss because not one of those things is on Sirianni. The play call. I mean, Saquon Barkley has to make that catch. And I know nobody wants to rip Saquon because he's new and he's a great player, and there's a big Penn State following here, and he's a Penn State guy, local guy from the LV, but he's got to make that catch. That's not on Sirianni. So I'm not saying Nick Sirianni is completely blameless in this, but to put him on there, it's lazy, and you're better than that. Like, let's have these tough conversations. Like, everybody loves Howie Roseman, but Howie Roseman's the one that put the defensive line together that can't get a pass rush. Howie Roseman played a big part in bringing in Vic Fangio, who apparently seems uninterested in teaching these guys basic fundamentals. It's like he's above it. Nick Sirianni, or Howie Roseman's the guy that was very instrumental in bringing in Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore's the one that made that play call, which I actually don't mind the play call. He's the one that gave Saquon the money that dropped it. So don't be lazy. Don't put the 100% of this blame on Sirianni. We tend to do this. Like, we get it stuck in our crawl that we don't like this guy and everything's his fault. I see it happen with Joe all the time. I've seen it happen. We'll talk more about him later in the show. I've seen it happen with Donovan. Like, just certain things. Like, it's ridiculous. We're better than that, Philly. We're better than that. Don't be lazy like the national media. This is not on Nick Sirianni. Sure, he's not 100% blameless, but he's also not 100% to blame, and there's a lot of other people that I will blame for this loss over Nick Sirianni. So there's your hot take to get in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. But really, I mean it. And everybody's getting on him about Hurts leading the post-game talk. It is what it is. You can't have it both ways. Like, yeah, maybe the coach should have said something, but Nick Sirianni said, hey, what Jalen said was exactly what I was going to say. And truthfully, do you want to beat a dead horse? No, they lost. It sucked. The way they lost absolutely sucked. And just a couple months ago, you're complaining that Jalen Hurts is not a leader. So here he is stepping up, leading, saying what needs to be said to the team, and now you're bitching about it? Like, you got to take a step back, Philly. You're better than this. Take off your blinders, your Nick Sirianni hate blinders, and look at the big picture and give the guy a fair shake. Like, last year was last year. You can't take that away. Nothing is going to change that. And yes, you can feel how you want to feel about that, but to put the blame on Nick Sirianni for this loss is just lazy. And I know we're better than that, so let's be better. No AJ for practice for the walkthrough yesterday. Doesn't look like he's going to play, but I guess we'll know more today because I believe they have a full practice. And ultimately, though, I think it comes down to something that we hated when Andy Reid said this, but I think it holds true more than ever, specifically on defense. And you can make the argument on offense, too, especially with Jahan Dotson and Dallas Goedert. But these coordinators, and this is where Nick can take some of the blame. He needs to be in these meetings, giving his input on both. You got to put these players in the position to succeed. Like, I get Vic Fangio, you have your system and you want things to run a certain way. But it hasn't really looked good for the past 2 weeks. So maybe, and I know you have a ton of experience and you've been in this game a long time. But you have to adapt here. You have to see what your players are capable of and set them up to be successful. If that means moving Jalen Carter to the outside and letting him rush from there, do it. If it means taking Bryce Huff off the field on rushing plays and letting him do what he does best, rush the passer, that does it. If it means playing Milton Williams more, then do it. I mean, everybody talked about Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean. I didn't really see much of Devin White. Maybe you give Devin White a shot. Whatever it is, you have to adapt and put these players, as Andy Reid used to always say, you got to do a better job of putting the players in a position to succeed. All right, so let's turn the page on the Atlanta game. Turn the page. Let's move on, and let's start focusing on the Saints. We'll start getting in that tomorrow. But as far as the Nick Sirianni thing, I can't stress this enough. Don't be lazy. Don't take the easy way out. We talk all the time. This week on Tuesday, we said that the things that mean the most in life are not easy, and the easy things are not meaningful, or I'm paraphrasing somewhat. It's easy to blame Nick Sirianni. It's sexy. It's the right thing to do. But it's not Nick Sirianni. You gotta let's have these difficult conversations. Maybe Howie is not the genius we thought he was. I mean, let's be real. This is his team he put together. They can't rush the pass. His defensive coordinator that everybody wanted just seems uninterested in teaching these guys this. Our star Penn State Super Bowl or super free agent running back Saquon Barkley dropped an easy pass. I mean, let's start having these difficult conversations. Take off the blinders. We're better than that. And if you want to tell me how much I suck for that, 267-495-8531. Bring it, and I'll respond back and tell you why you're wrong. All right, lots of Sixers news. And Sixers, or NBA season, I should say, is around the corner, because if you saw yesterday on Instagram, as has been pretty much a staple here since he came into the league, Ben Simmons was back in the lab working and grinding yesterday. And we all know how this is going to end, but Ben Simmons is back in the lab, as he likes to say. But the big news was the mayor announced that she is in support of the arena down on 9th and Market in the Fashion District, and it goes to City Council to approve next. It appears that it's going to be approved because Mark Squilla is the councilman that represents Chinatown, and he's actually in support of the stadium as well. It does come with a $50 million clause for community benefits, which is supposed to help out the surrounding neighborhood. And personally, I mean, and again, here's number two, that if you want to tell me how much of an idiot I am, I actually like the idea of putting the stadium down there. And I mean, I live in the suburbs now, but I lived in the city for 20 years. And I know that area is just a waste of space. And it has been for years. They spent all the money on fixing up the gallery, and nobody goes there because there's nothing really to do there. And I get Philly's a neighborhood, and everybody loves their neighborhood, and Chinatown does not want this stadium there. But again, take the blinders off. look at this in a big picture. This is a massive thing and a great positive for the city. And it's going to revitalize that area. And I think the Sixers need to do it right. They need to use that $50 million to help the surrounding community there. They also need, and it's a great opportunity, especially for the NBA, who is trying to expand globally, to really embrace the Chinese culture that is already in that area and incorporate that into the construction of the stadium, the stuff that's going to surround it, the atmosphere in the building. I think this is a great opportunity to really, I think if we take the blinders off again, to really expand and bring some education and exposure to Chinese culture, because of that's where the stadium is. I mean, and I think a lot of the people who are against this, and the only argument I've heard minus the people that live in Chinatown, it's been very selfish reasons. Oh, it's going to be a pain in the ass to drive there. Guess what? If you've ever driven to any event in South Philly, it's a pain in the ass to drive there. It's a pain in the ass to park. It's a pain in the ass to get home. And the fact of the matter is, there's a regional rail station right there. The subway runs right there. Like, this is a win-win. You just need to change your mindset. Change the way you go to the game. I might be more inclined to go to more games because I can hop on the train and be right there. Now, this is very, very important. SEPTA, if you're listening, you need to cooperate and be a part of this and run more trains. Like, I have been stranded on Sundays at Market East after Eagles games trying to get home and having to pay $100 for an Uber ride. So you need to run more trains and cooperate with the Sixers on this as well on game days. But like I'm all in on this. I think it's great for the city. The city needs it, and as somebody who is a 20-year resident or former resident of the city, someone who is in education and worked in the educational system in Philadelphia, the money that this is going to raise. Now, this is another caveat which you can't necessarily control here. The city has to use this money the right way, the tax revenue. Excuse me. Listen, that's a whole other debate for another time, whether or not they're capable and competent enough to do it. But the potential and everything is going to be there. And I think this is a win for everybody. And I really think the Sixers need to do this right to really embrace and celebrate the neighborhood and the Chinese culture there in Chinatown. And people just need to get over it and change your mindset. I mean, yes, I don't know. I've never heard one person say and talk about how great it is to drive to a Sixers or an Eagles or a Phillies game or even a concert. I've never talked to it. And if you're one of those people, hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line and tell me how great it is to drive down there and then get home when you have 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70,000 people trying to get out of there. Tell me the way you get home, because I would love to know, because I have never not been stuck in traffic for more than a half an hour. Minimum half hour. So I'm all for it. Again, tell me why you're wrong. And everybody talks about what are they going to put there? There's not enough concerts and this and that. Guess what? The WNBA is expanding. They just expanded. They want to expand 4 more teams. They just expanded the 3rd out in Portland. So now there's one in Portland, one in the Bay Area, one in Toronto. If they're going to even things out for competitive balance, East versus West, there's an East Coast team. Philly has already been batted around as one. Why not? This is a good opportunity to at least have more events there. Bring the WNBA. I'm all for the WNBA coming to Philly. That's another positive too. Like I said, I think it's short-sighted and you have blinders on if you think this is a negative thing. And again, the only thing that I've heard negative from people, for the most part, that don't live in Chinatown, that live in the suburbs or outside of the city, is the inconvenience of having to take the train or the traffic. Traffic sucks in South Philly after a game. 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. I'm on fire today, so let's go. Union with a 5-1 win yesterday over New York City. 5 different players scored a goal. They are currently sitting in the 9th playoff spot, which is the wild card series. I think it's a wild card game. But they have 5 games left. 3 of them are at home against all teams that are up above them or battling for playoff spots in the standings. They're 3 back of the 8th seed, 5 back of the 7th, which is the non-wild card. Again, with 5 games to play, so it's going to be a fun little thing for the Union down here, playoff push. So let's get it done. They've been playing well ever since the Leagues Cup tournament, so great win for them. They really control their own destiny. If they can do well over the next 5 games, not only will they get into the playoffs, they might not have to play in the wild card knockout round. So good win for them. Flyers training camp gets underway. We're going to see some Mishkov. Can't wait. I have never been more hyped up and excited for Flyers season. And then they have their first preseason game on Sunday already, so it's like full steam ahead. And the Sixers are right around the corner. Ben Simmons is back in the lab cooking. All right, today I'm going to combine our This Day in Philly Sports History with our Philly Sports Villain, and you'll see why here in a minute, and I think it just goes together. So let's start, though. On this day back in 2013, the Eagles lost to the Chiefs 26-16 on Thursday Night Football. It was Andy Reid's first return to Philly since he got fired and took the job in Kansas City. The defense played fairly well against Alex Smith and Jamal Charles. They only gave up 1 touchdown, but the offense struggled. Chip Kelly's offense turned the ball over 5 times, including a Michael Vick pick 6. To the Philly fans' credit, and again, I just tore you down a little bit with your Nick Sirianni and stadium opinions, but I'm going to pick you back up here. This is one of those things that we don't get enough credit for. Andy Reid received a standing ovation. The crowd was very appreciative. It did not end well for Andy, so it was I remember this, like it was like a question on how the crowd would respond and react. Gave him a standing ovation, gave him what he needed, and then that was sort of it. And I still think it's like a lot of respect for Andy. Wish it would have played out differently. Could have won a Super Bowl, but hey, it is what it is. The story of the night, though, was there was a halftime ceremony to retire Donovan McNabb's number 5 jersey. And that was done purposely because it was Andy Reid's return and allowed him to at least, I think they kind of delayed it somewhat, and he was actually on the field to see a little bit of it. But that's where he gave the infamous number 5 will always love you and talked about his time in Philly. So on this day in 2013, Eagles lost to the Chiefs 26-16. It was Andy Reid's return to Philly and the retirement of Donovan McNabb's number, who also happens to be today's Philly sports villain. And I told you I'm going to give you plenty to interact on the Back to the Future voice and text line about. This is another one of those things because I will say he is considered a villain still by many people in this fan base. Even today, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's unfair. He does not deserve the criticism he gets. And yes, I will preface this by saying I drive the Donovan McNabb bus, always have, probably always will, but I just don't understand. And I mean, the reasons are obviously the low balls, the smile when he would do something bad, like people like still talk about him playing air guitar against before that playoff loss in Dallas. He would always go my bad and smile. He came up short in the Super Bowl, came up short in 5 NFC Championship game or 4 of the 5 NFC Championship game. The whole TO situation. He never really warmed up to Philly fans. He was seen as a puppet for Andy Reid and Joe Banner in the front office. I mean, it all started when he was booed on draft day, which is ridiculous. Like, still to this day, it's going to take everything in my being not to say something to Angelo Cataldi at the Hall of Fame ceremony. It's just dumb. So, but all of those things combined, is it justified? I mean, a lot of those things are true. I mean, he had one hell of a deep ball. He could not throw that short pass to save his life accurately and consistently. Did they lose the Super Bowl because of him? I mean, he didn't play great. He puked. There was rumors that he was hungover, but he still threw for 350 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did have 3 interceptions, though. I mean, the defense could have played better as well. The St. Louis NFC Championship game, can't put on him. That was the greatest show on turf. The Tampa Bay game, 100%. He did not play well, but neither did the defense. So to put it all on him, I'll still give you that. The Carolina game, he was hurt. It was a cheap shot. And he battled through, and some of those interceptions were tipped balls that should have been caught. The Arizona NFC Championship game, 100% is not on Donovan. He gave them a lead in the fourth quarter. The defense couldn't get it done. He threw for 3 touchdowns, almost 400 yards. He's the number 1 ranked quarterback in Eagles history, yards and touchdowns, attempts, completions. It's not even close. He's the best quarterback in Eagles history, but everybody hates him for whatever reason, because I guess he's a villain because everybody associates him. He's the quarterback, so rightfully so, as the face of that franchise. But there's no denying he's the best quarterback in team history. The T.O. situation, both of them are equally to blame, but I still, this is the one thing that I will rip Donovan for. He did not handle it well. His ego got in the way. All he had to do, and I've said it, and I'll say it all the time, all he had to do, even if he did not believe it, just go out and stand up for your teammate, because we saw yesterday that game against the 49ers, when they were rolling, they were unstoppable, and they both blew it. Yes, the smile and the my bad annoyed the hell out of me. Not being able to make the short passes, but man, nobody threw a better deep ball, in my opinion, than Donovan. But he's today's Philly sports villain. I don't agree with it, but I'm a man of the people, and I know a lot of people still view Donovan as a villain. To me, I put him and Ryan Howard as the top 2, and I can make the argument for either one. Top 2 underappreciated Philadelphia athletes of all time. We had it, and we're going down the same path right now with Joel Embiid, underappreciated, and I just, sorry, gave you a lot to talk about on the Back to the Future voice and text line, but Donovan McNabb is today's Philly sports villain, even though I don't agree with it. On this day in 2013, Eagles lost to the Chiefs 26-16. Andy Reid's return the night they retired. Donovan's number 5, and Donovan told us he will always love us, and I sleep better at night knowing that. Sixers, let me know your thoughts on the arena. That is today's question of the day. Where do you want the Sixers to put the arena? South Philly or Chinatown? 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Let me know your thoughts. I gave you a lot of stuff to talk about today. Talk Phillies, talk Taiwan Walker, Stadium, Nick Sirianni, Donovan McNabb, Ryan Howard, whatever you want. It's all fair game. Told you I came fired out of a cannon. Came a little bit long today, but that's okay. 267-495-8531. Let me know, though. Where should the Sixers put the new stadium? Should it be back in South Philly or in Chinatown? Listen, as Robert De Niro said in Meet the Parents, I will take you down, my friend. I will take you down to Chinatown, and that's where the stadium should be. Huge series against the Mets. I'm all fired up today. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for September 19th, 2024. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Thursday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.